Look so fancy.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, well, that's why. Here we go.
And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. If he's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous water. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you'd never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door,
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess. I keep forgetting when I'm in love anymore. I keep forgetting.
Okay, on the 23rd episode of Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast, my guest today is Allison and Alicia to discuss HB 20 here in New Hampshire. This episode is a little bit more local and a little bit more personal, as for anyone who's been viewing for a while knows that I'll be running to replace Chris Pappas in the New Hampshire's 1st Congressional District because he sucks. So, how are we doing today, ladies?
Doing good. How about you?
Spectacular. So you guys had a video online talking about HB 20 and everything going up here with the schools and stuff. Can you guys dive in a little bit deeper for that? Because I'm actually really excited about how we can change education here in New Hampshire and possibly lead the way for some vestige of sanity in the rest of the country.
Go ahead, Leash.
Yeah, Allie, I don't know if you want to. I mean, so House Bill 20 is actually a education freedom account. So ultimately, it's set up for a certain portion of tuition to go to the parents, so that they can make their decisions for whether it's homeschooling, for the kids in New Hampshire, really successful. But this is the first time it's hitting this close to home. So,
okay, what are the ins and outs of the bill, or what do you see positive and negative?
Allie, I don't know.
And what's the pushback?
Yeah. So the positives are, it puts the decision-making authority back into the parents' hands. The public school system is, although it's wonderful, it doesn't necessarily work for all kids from different walks of life and different learning styles. Again, the power back to the parents. Some of the pushback, which is what our video with respect to New Hampshire was about, was that there's 4 myths. So, I mean, there's taxes raising, there's concerns about, the public school system losing funding.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's some negatives, but there's a lot more positives. It's not something that we're just rolling out. It's something that these legislators have really looked into, and they would like to make it an option for New Hampshire.
Okay. And Allison, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, like Alicia said, our the video that we did for Respect New Hampshire was about the 4 most circulated myths with regards to educational freedom accounts. And a big one that we hear all the time is it's going to take funding from public schools. And again, we keep encouraging people to contact, their rep about that, or the person that sponsors the bill, when they have questions, to kind of get that answer and to feel a little bit better about it. But that's a big one that we see a lot, and so that's where a lot of the pushback comes from. The teachers or the teachers unions, because they're afraid to lose funding. And this bill, House Bill 20, actually, part of it is that they put in a I believe it's 3 years, for the public schools to figure out their budget, based on enrollment and per pupil. But it actually only gives the families about 30% of the funding, so 70% still stays with the school. So if you look at it, if there's 3 students missing from a class, that class for that school is still, 7% of 3 students that aren't there anymore. So I think a lot of the support for it comes from, parents wanting to put that, get that power back to be able to choose what works best for their kids, because a lot of families feel like public school does work, and no one is saying that it doesn't. But if you're a family that's struggling with an ADA or a 504 or an IEP, or you're an ELL student and you find a resource or an educational avenue that would work better for your child, you want to do what's best for your child. So this would give that power back to the family, that may not financially be able to do it and may not know there's a vast amount of resources out there to be able to do it.
Okay. I completely agree. I'm not a big fan of the teachers unions because I see it and their pushback on this, because I see it in one simple vein. The teachers union's job is not to represent the student. The teachers union's job is to represent the teachers, which means the students aren't even a part of the conversation. And essentially those discussions happen behind closed doors, and we're not privy to most of them. And it inevitably ends up putting the students at the background. Oh, Alicia changed. Different. All right.
Yay!
That's better.
Sorry about that.
But inevitably,
It's
we end up
unfortunate.
putting our students at the background of the whole discussion, as they're not the ones that we're considering first. And everything that they're supposed to be getting, if education is the goal, then everything else besides the success of the child's education and their opportunities should be last in the discussion. Basically, if I want to educate my kid, I'll figure out how to make the rest of it work.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that so I missed some of it, but I'm gonna start over. I know that Allie and I, so it must be something with Comcast, because both of our internets are down. So I think that one of the biggest things for us in New Hampshire is really raising awareness of what this bill actually is. And, like we did in our original, in our video with respect to New Hampshire, we covered, the 4 biggest myths for education. So, or for the education freedom accounts. So, thinking about, some of the pushback we get is, raising taxes, or that the schools are going to lose funding. And that's just, it's simply not true. Like I said before, 30% of the money goes towards the families, and then the other 70% still goes into the schools. So it's really important that people, whether you support it or don't, at least know the facts, and at least be able to support those. Another good example, have you read?
Got you back.
We're going in and out. I really think it's Comcast. So when you're thinking about the myths and you're thinking about supporting or not supporting a bill, obviously, we the people don't make all of the decisions. So it's really important that we continue not just for ourselves to read and educate ourselves on these bills, but also, to be able to to share the information that we're learning.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's everything that's going on. If my wife is a early childhood education teacher, so she's dealing with it from that side, with all the school age kids having to be at the daycare that she teaches at, and now having to educate much older kids and make sure that they're able to do all of their work accordingly. And it's going better than we expect, than it started out as, but it's not we're starting to realize that the kids don't really need 8 hours a day in classroom.
Yeah.
And that they're not getting that when they're able to focus, they're moving faster through their curriculum. Having that at home parent, or that at home or out of school teacher helping them focus. My son specifically is actually doing so damn well right now that I'm having a hard time putting enough information in front of him to keep him from getting distracted and causing problems.
Yeah.
So that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing. I mean, think about household money. I mean, the whole education system. So it really speaks to the fact that not all kids learn the same, right?
Yeah.
My son has a 504, and then my oldest has an IEP. And my son himself, my one with the 504, it isn't that like we're gonna fix. We have to adapt to that ideology, and even though we're able to kind of circumvent that, it's an amazing opportunity for us to be able to make decisions about our family.
Yep. Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to add, Allison?
I kind of missed that last part, so I'm not exactly sure where you were going with that, but I mean, like I think I was saying earlier, with regards to the teachers union, there's another House bill. I think it's, don't quote me, I think it's 206. That will hopefully move forward and get passed, so that we as taxpayers can have some type of representation in those teachers union meetings, the negotiations. I can't remember the exact language of the bill, but I think that it would just give us an opportunity to be there, because different from private sector unions, the teachers unions negotiate against the taxpayers, so we don't have the representation there. So I think that's really important, moving forward, especially with everything that's been so polarized this year, and people are paying attention. And I know for us here in Nashua, we got our tax bills, and the tax bills went up for schools that have been closed.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that part of the frustration, honestly, Julian, that our taxes are going up, right? But our schools stay closed for 11 months. So
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, like I said, it's like, where's our money going? It would be like buying a car that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, or buying.
I'm right there with you guys. I'm in dairy, and my tax bill's going up, even though schools have been closed. I can't go anywhere, can't do anything, and my kids are starting to get to the point where they're, the kids can't talk to other kids. They start to get depressed, and now we're seeing that rise in schools too. So it's like a compounding problem, and the only thing that anyone seems to figure out is how to add to it and not subtract.
exactly. That's been, for me and Allie, Allie and I, that's part of the bigger issue is that about House Bill 20. It's about this huge divide. Whether you're on the right or you're on the left, being able to walk in the middle of that is a really and I don't think that people are realizing how the divide impacting everything. It's impacting at the national level, and then it's down to the local levels too, and at our state level. Whether you oppose it or not with House, um, it's not your decision to make my kids or for your kids or for Allie's kids. It's my job to do what's best for my kids, like it's your job to do what's best for your kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're their constituents. I mean, they're supposed to do these things on behalf of their constituents. Like if I asked any of the kids, who does the president work for? They'll say us. So it's the same thing with our elected officials, and we have to hold them accountable to things that they're doing. And right now, I mean, like we said, school's been closed, but the public schools have been closed, but the charters or like the Catholic schools, private schools have managed to make it work. So there's a lot of families who, I mean, Alicia can, agree with me on this. We hear stories day in and day out about parents. They themselves are taking this on and they say, I feel like I'm failing because I cannot afford to send my kids somewhere else. I can't afford to do this. I can't move. I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And they feel like that is their fault. They're like, if only I wasn't out of work, or if only I had a better job, or only if I lived somewhere where I could afford to do that and pay the rent or pay my mortgage. And House Bill 20, I mean, I think especially for people like us in our situation, we're single moms, that puts something back in our control where we could say, okay, I have this money, I can homeschool, or I can find a pod, or through this people are going to start charters. We could, the financial piece is so big for people because that's where they get the most stuck. They're not stuck with wanting to do what's best for their child. They're stuck with, how do I do it?
We're not even stuck with resources anymore. I mean,
right.
I hear ever since the beginning of the pandemic, I hear on the radio the advertisements for Laurel Springs, the advertisement for Hillsdale College, and Liberty University does a K through 12 program. And I know when I was stationed out in California, they even had a rule that it was that if your kids hadn't graduated high school, if they were still registered high school students, they could take college courses on a college campus for free as a part of their to supplement their schools, which was their addressing the school curriculum. Most people in the state don't know about it, and neither party has really picked it up and ran with it as far as making it a more widespread thing. However, it's definitely something that's worthwhile. I agree with your assessment of the teachers unions for damn sure. And essentially, I don't understand how they could complain that they're getting 70% of the cost of educating a child without actually having the child to educate. To me, that means you're getting 70% of the cost. You have more resources to divvy up amongst the rest of the kids that you have. And it sounds to me like a lot of double speak, like a lot of my kids can go to private school, charter schools, whatever, but your kids can't. My kids get opportunity, but your kids can't. My kids get to go to a school where they get financial literacy and business advice and things like that, but your kids can't. And the more I see these conversations continue, and I see more options being taken off the table rather than added to it for the sake of preserving a system that has been broken for probably about 4 decades now, that we're continuously pumping out people that can't operate in society, know very little about history or how their government or how their country is supposed to operate and what their rights are. which I could care less if my child knows calculus, but he damn sure needs to understand what his rights are and how he's supposed to operate in society and how society is supposed to operate and the limits on what can and can't be done. So I agree with everything that you guys said, and I really hope that this actually comes to fruition and that it doesn't get shut down by teachers unions, because we need this. I would love to have more options for my child. I would love to be able to put my kid in a system where he is going to be the best of what he can be and not just get told to dumb himself down to the mediocrity that we commonly hear. Gifted kids, be quiet and shut up because we got to deal with everyone that's lagging behind. And I want all of you to be on level with the C student in the classroom. And I see that as a negative towards society.
Yeah, I mean, my hope is that if House Bill 20 passes, that in 2 years it's not undone, that we can keep it going. Because that's my only thing is the flip-flopping that goes on when we change over, a majority in the House or the Senate, or, even in Washington, it's the flip-flop of every 2 years. So I'm hoping that if this passes, we can get a good 2 years under the belt of this, or a year and a half, and people will see that the public schools themselves have 3 years to rebalance their budget. They're giving them this time frame to, figure it out, essentially. I mean, most other businesses don't generally get 3 years to figure out, how to fiscally fix their, budgets based on per pupil cost or per whatever cost. So that's my hope there. And I'm hoping that they see that it works and that the kids are thriving and that the teachers aren't losing. Because I have to tell you, I grew up here. I went to the National Public Schools, and I loved my teachers and I loved the education that I got. I mean, granted, I'm older and I'm sure to this point it's changed, but I think that it's not a taking the power away from the union is what I want to say. It's the including the taxpayer in the negotiation process, and not necessarily making all teachers have to unionize, kind of like the right to work thing. So I think more teachers in this particular situation, this particular climate, there's some really great ones out there. If they didn't feel that sort of pressure or fear from their colleagues or the union or something like that, might have stood up more and said, like, I want to go back, because we've heard from them.
A lot of teachers want to go back to the classroom. Mm-hmm. I see most teachers when I moved up here from Ohio when I was younger. Most teachers want to educate kids. In the teacher's mind, it's typically the education of kids. Unions want to sustain themselves, but the teachers do want to educate, and they see the problems that these kids are having not being able to be in the classroom. They see how far behind these kids are falling. The only reason my kid's excelling right now is because when I saw them pretty much spend half the year last year at home, I immediately started putting books and videos in front of my son and handing him as much information. He likes to learn, so I handed him as much as he could possibly soak up. He likes to dive into history, so I give him as many books as he could possibly. So now he's at the point where he's blowing through my book collection. There's a lot of kids that love to learn, and we need to get them back in the classroom. I see absolutely no reason why we should hold our kids back for some failed veil politics. We need to focus on solutions rather than whose team is better.
Yeah,
and hopefully we can maybe not get sucked up in the flip-flopping every 2 years, and maybe keep a good policy when it shows that it works, and not just rip it out by the roots because Team Red or Team Blue proposed it.
Yeah,
I think you bring up really good points. The flip-flopping, and so one size doesn't fit all, right? And
Yeah.
you think about the curriculum, like you said, calculus or along those lines. Like some kids just aren't interested in. You know, our oldest son he's not the thriving academic kid. He's a hands-on kid. So a trade school is going to be, you know, a better opportunity for him. So why wouldn't we want to gear his foundational work? And then you talk about the hypocrisy with all of it. You can't have it both ways. So if it's not broke, then we shouldn't try to fix it, like you said. When you know, if we're bent the wheel every 2 years, that's inefficient. It's, you know, it's a poor use of time, poor use of resources. And then you think about it, if it's not broken, then you don't try to fix it. But if it is broken, which we're seeing right now, then you create outside the box solutions, which is what House Bill 20 does. You know, it's taking what we have and giving it back to the parents, because nothing and really, really understood through 19 is that work for all the kids. And I've also realized that the material and the curriculum that they're learning is not one taking, you know, tech ed remotely. One of them took power mechanics remotely. So those are classes you can't do, and after home, and they have options for 11 months. We've limited their opportunity. It's been a completely process.
It's not fair to the students to try and ask them to do something. Now, I personally am the type of person that can take things online, and I can take things outside of a classroom, but most kids who spent their entire lives sitting in a classroom listening to a teacher were not ready to be ripped out of a classroom and told, here you go, figure it out. And most parents who work full-time jobs were sure as hell not ready to get the exact same treatment. So now we got to figure out a way to get these kids back in the classroom. It's just not fair.
I agree. It's not that it's just not fair. I'm trying to fix this glitch thing, so I'm like, I'm a hot mess over here trying to fix it.
Oh, it's okay. I thought it was me at first. I was trying. It's got to be Comcast itself, because I'm having glitches on my end. I'm seeing the little icon pop up says internet unstable. So Xfinity, fix your shit. Damn it.
Yeah, internet my whole life is unstable right now. So thanks Comcast for reaffirming that.
Yeah, and hiking the prices.
Yeah. It's.
Yeah, hey, thanks guys, raising the cost. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't get it. And then randomly, rather than just sending a damn update to their routers, they have to cancel a router entirely. So I'll come home and my router's dead. And they'll be like, oh, well, it's outdated. So you don't send electronic updates like we do with everything else.
True.
Huh.
But you think, outside of us, right? So regardless of let's talk about the bigger issue, right? The bigger issue is the politics and the control that these people have just further proves that people that are for the people and, respectfully agree to disagree, but at the same time, think about the people that elected them. Like, we put you in these because you told us that you were going to do these things. And if you're not, then maybe you shouldn't be in a position anymore.
Yeah. I completely agree. We need My definition of a representative is somebody who throws themselves into the fray for their constituents. A person who is there to represent, not based on their own fortuitous circumstances, but based on what their constituents elected them to do. You're supposed to go to DC or to Concord, and you're supposed to do what your constituents need, even when it doesn't work in your own personal favor. And
Yeah, and you're supposed to
unfortunately,
listen
that
to
is
them.
not what's happening right now.
Yeah, and you're supposed to listen to them. You're not supposed to censor or block them or be unresponsive to them because they don't share your point of view. And, I think one of the tragedies of the last, I can't even say decade, I don't know, probably decade, is that the civil discourse between everyone is so high. We can't have those discussions anymore. It's like, nope, cut you off, like you're done. I don't want, like, I miss that so much. I miss being able to talk to someone who didn't feel the same way I did, and we could have a conversation where we walked away and hugged it out or shook hands or we weren't mad. And everyone is so mad and so emotional, and it doesn't get us anywhere. And it's driving things like this. If the if and again, I stand behind people that want to stand behind the things that they believe in and their stance and their morals and their values and all that, because I do the same thing. And we're always being told lately, like, it's for the greater good, it's for the greater good, it's for the greater good. But it's only when that is for what you feel is the greater good. Like, everyone has a feeling of greater good for things that they believe in, and the people that we elect and that are in the places of power essentially need to look at the greater good of all of their constituents, not just the ones that fall on the red or the blue side.
I completely agree. That's where I call it political gangbanging and political thuggery. It's no different than a drive-by or thugs screaming at each other on the street. When we even use the exact same colors, so it fits. It's the way we care more about whose party wins and party this and party that than we do about the people that we're supposed to be representing. We really do need to be looking at solutions over politics. And honestly, if we just focused on solutions, I'd say the majority of the country, we agree on probably about 80% of things.
Yeah.
I'd say about 20% of it is all the language that we use, where we end up talking past each other more than we actually are talking to each other. And if we clarify the language and get the politicians out of the way that keep us arguing with each other, we, through normal conversation, can come to agreement on probably 95% of things. And then there's just 5% that we are not going to agree on. And we can just take that and stick it in a box and stick it on top of the shelf and ignore it. Because 95% is still an A.
Yeah. You know what else makes it difficult these days, though, honestly, and it's only been in the last, I don't know. I keep saying decade, maybe 10 years, because I'm getting old now. But is the facts. So, like, I have facts, you have facts, everyone has facts, and no one's facts are correct. Like, I could have a great argument, meaning, like, here is what I'm talking about, here is the data that goes along with it. I mean, with House Bill 20, I mean, the breakdown of the 4 myths in the actual article from Respect New Hampshire, goes into detail. And I will tell you that the minute that video was posted outside of Respect New Hampshire, everyone was like, nope, it's not true. No.
Well, people keep saying they're going to fact check, right? Allie and I hear that all the time. We're going to fact check you. Okay, so fact check to me equals you're just going to be rude. We've lost the ability to respectfully agree to disagree. Like, Julian has a different opinion, or Allie has a different opinion. I can be like, you know what? I totally respect where you're coming from, and I disagree. We don't have to go hand in hand, like the whole system right now, like heck that, how about that? Like with that whole mindset. It's absolutely ridiculous. And why wouldn't we want a bill that gives more options to the kids? Because let's be real, we come up with a lot, but this next generation or generations they're the future. So if we want to change, we got to start at the bottom, and the solution is give them options so that they can get to the top and think creatively and respectfully. And we're missing that.
I see the current generation of young kids coming up, and a conservative influencer, she does messaging to young voters, told me this, specifically Gen Z, all the new high school and college kids. And she told me that basically young voters do not want to continue to argue about social issues. They don't want it. They don't want that fight from our generation. They don't want to continue to do this years from now and still be haggling this out. They would much rather solve the issue and be done with it. And it goes, and they are increasingly less loyal to parties and increasingly more about finding solutions and screw the parties altogether, which is why we're having such a and both voting blocs are increasingly angry with their own representatives. We just saw this last election how basically everything that we thought about the Republican Party was bull. I mean, I've known that for like 10 years, but it was just more apparent to the majority of people. And it's going the same on the left right now. The fighting against the people that really control the party but don't actually listen to the voters. So I'm actually sort of optimistic that maybe we can actually start talking solutions sometime in the near future and get past all the bullshit.
Well, and I think that when you talk about raising hands on your mind, for me, I want my kids to have a difference of opinion. I want my kids to be educated, all of the different facets of politics. And I don't care if my wants to side with the Democrats or the Republicans. But these kids, for some of us, there is that gray area. So you don't have to be a far left or a far right. A lot of the generation in politics, an old school model of like, we're looking at House Bill 20. The vast majority of the people oppose it are on the Democratic. Took out Democrat or Republican, and you focus on, here's the kids. Let's do what's best for the kids. Let's do what's best for the family. Then we have a totally different conversation. But I don't know people in power, are really recognizing that make that change. Our conversations, how do you feel about Second Amendment? How do you feel about First Amendment? How do you feel about this person? And having that open conversation where Allie and I we're taking on some really heavy issues. The Board of Education, legislators, and we have been reached out by all of these. Not something we were like, hey guys, can you do it? No, like, hey, here's these two moms who did their homework for our kids. Because I mean, if you're not fighting for your kids or for the children that are in your community, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Politicians stay away from pissing off teachers' unions and police unions. Republicans stay away from pissing off police unions, and Democrats stay away from pissing off teachers' unions. My issue with public sector unions is that they're basically advocating against the taxpayers without the taxpayers being at the table. And no, our representatives who pay these people are not sitting at the table. If it happens behind closed doors, we're not sitting at the table. And that's the problem. And it goes same with legislation. bills
Allie,
that get proposed without us getting to see the bill before our legislators actually vote on it is a problem. And it happens at the local level, it happens at the state level, and it happens at the federal level. It's a serious problem where we continue to get. It's kind of like when you were a kid and your parents told you to leave the room so they could have the adult conversation that you couldn't be privy to. That's what continues to happen with us. We get told to leave the room so the big adults can have their conversation, where eventually we get screwed anyways.
well, no offense to the big adults in the room, but you guys are doing a shit job. Like, I don't want to say that, but like, I, and we're not on group recognition because we're just here. So we had conversations with you where we were like, what do you like? What is holding you back? At first, it was staffing. Now it's vaccines. What's next? Kids getting the vaccine. Well, joke's on you guys because my getting the vaccine, and neither is my family. So you can't afford to do that, and if you don't do that, you're forgetting about all of these laws, like free, appropriate public education.
Yeah.
It's not like free, appropriate education, but if the union disagrees with it, like no offense, to the union, you just had an 11-month.
Yeah.
No accountability for that. And that's what HB 20 gives us is accountability. And we're missing that.
I take issue with teachers getting to go home on a vacation and then using the unions to push stuff that has nothing to do with education to leverage a political ideology rather than go back to work. Because I know that's not how the teachers feel. That's not how most teachers feel. But you know what? I do got to blame the teachers that are unwilling to stand up, because if so many of you disagree with the teachers' unions, stand up and tell the teachers' unions to knock it off. The fact is, there's a threshold of how many of you that they can fire before they actually have to listen. And I tell you right now, an entire school or entire state of teachers saying, or 40% of the teachers in the state saying, hey, you guys need to knock it the hell off, they're going to have to knock it the hell off.
Well, if they were willing to do that, Julian, but instead, you've got teachers union and us to it too. Like we had teachers here that are 5 and 26, and I agree. Like there's some teachers absolutely wonderful. Here, sure, you're good, but it's not even that they can't speak up. It's that the union, just like right, so adults and some, like no, teachers, we're having a conversation. Step outside. I don't need to hear it. And I think that like they were so afraid of going back to school, and they were so afraid. First, like I said, now it's the vaccine. Okay, well, what's going to be next? Because you got something else. And these are the same teachers that are like, so we can't go to school, guys. But you're traveling to Florida for February vacation. Make sure that you quarantine for 10 days. And I'm like, or don't travel. Like, don't go to Florida. Go back to work. The job that you were hired for is the job that you're doing. Unless you compromise household or you are an individual who's compromised, I'm sorry. Yep. Like, I can't support that anymore.
Yeah. Allison, you want to jump in? I don't want you to get froze out, because I know you got some knowledge.
It's it's true. It's one of those things. It's so I don't even know the right word for it. It's really frustrating because so like you were saying earlier, Julian, that you're a person that can learn online, and that's you can do it outside of a classroom. I did the same thing in order to get my college degree. I had to work during the day and I had to go to school at night online. And I did that and I could do that. But that's because my brain is, 30 plus years old. So I could do that. But you're right. Kids can't, especially kids that have experienced public school or private school or charter school for as long as they have, to just say, okay, here you go, like you're going to do this now, and not leave the house, and this is how you're going to learn. Their brains weren't built for that quite yet. At 30 something, I could do that to get my degree because I'm 30 something. My brain was there. And I mean, even 30 something year olds can't do that. They have to go to physical college because that's how they learn. And you know, the teachers that don't want to go back to work, I think that there's still going to be a good percentage of those families that feel in line or the same way with the teachers who don't want to go back. They don't want their children to go back. They live in a household with, you know, immunocompromised family members, etc. So I think there's still a place for those teachers that can't go back. But I mean, I think, what did we figure out, Alicia? The median age of teachers in our community was 46 or 42.
Like 46, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, my mother is 66, and she's been an ICU nurse all my life, and she's an ICU trauma nurse. She's a hospice nurse, and she has worked this entire time. She's never feared coronavirus. She follows the protocols as she needs to, you know, wash her hands, wears mask, gowns up when the policy, you know, states to do so, face shield, all of the above, right? But she loves being a nurse. That's her job. That is what she takes pride in and has loved to do her entire life. So at 66, having hypertension does not stop her from going in and taking care of these patients. So if the median age of teachers here is, you know, under 50, and they don't have a significant issue, immunocompromised or otherwise, I have a hard time, just for me personally, because like I said, this is my life experience, that my mother's a nurse, you know, that my mom will stand up and go do that every single day. But a teacher in their 40s with nothing wrong with them doesn't want to stand up to do their job. And they always tell us that they're working and things like that. And I don't doubt that they are. It's just that the job that you were hired for was not to be that online professor for SNHU to give someone a bachelor's degree. It was to be hired to be an in-person public school teacher. So I think what really needs to happen is they need to figure out the group of teachers that wants to go back and the group of teachers that wants to stay remote, and then compare that with what they would have with students who want to go back and students that want to stay remote. And then we just move forward. Like, I don't know why we're stuck here. Like, why can't we just do that?
To be honest, seeing how fast my kid progresses outside of a classroom, I don't want him to go back to slow playing it inside of a classroom. All I see coming from that is discipline problems. Because he moves faster than the class. He's going to move faster than the class, and he's going to get to a point where he's not going to be able to keep up with his natural ability. Like I said, is at this young age, my son is 9, so he's going on 10. And he's at that age where he likes to learn. Mm-hmm. And while he's at that age, I'm pumping full of as much knowledge as he can possibly handle before he starts to walk out in the world and people tell him to, you know, sit down and be quiet. To be honest, I see good things with the at-home remote learning and stuff, because kids can stay at home with stay-at-home moms and get their education, stuff like that, which decreases class size, which allows teachers to focus on kids that need help. And it also, the different methods of curriculum and stuff like that also allow advanced kids to advance faster, and kids who are advancing slower to get that extra help that they need. So I don't think going back and sitting in a classroom is 100% the answer, but the majority of kids need to be back in some sort of structured lifestyle. And most households cannot handle half of their income sitting at home with kids. Not, at least not in the present environment. So something's got to give. And I know the financial aspect that all of this centers around. $5,000 sitting in somebody's bank account is enough that could change what bills get paid and what don't. And the rest of it can pretty much come through budgeting and stuff like that. I know a couple $100 in my account each week, or $100-200 in my account each week could change the different when I was younger, when we first had our kids, could change the difference between being able to make my wife a stay-at-home wife and take care of my son and deal with educating him, or her needing to go to work full time.
Yep.
And that is a big difference. And I see there being benefits in kids sitting in the classroom. And I see obviously socialization, structure, discipline, the abilities to sit in the classroom and pay attention. However, there's also there are kids that we need to unleash, because those are going to be the kids that find cures for cancer and solve serious issues going forward.
Well, you're right. I don't. So that was really one of the is that parents would abuse the money. That there's certain parameters that you can spend it towards. If you're a homeschool parent, you can spend that money for getting curriculum access from a lot of free stuff, or like Khan Academy is free. You had mentioned one earlier, but a lot of the resources that come with home education. My sister has 7 children. First of all, she's on a farm and has 7 children, so she's already succeeding far more than I probably ever will. But she homeschools them, so this would present an for her to have more resources, to be able to hire if there's a subject that you don't comprehend, and then another alternative, it's absolutely bullshit that people that are making these decisions send their kids to a private school, but then it's like a backsided concern, and it's completely invalid. You're punching me in the face, saying you can't do this, and then you're throwing a left hook and saying oh, by the way, but I can. So I can afford it, but you can't. Your kid has to stay in public education. If you from that or you disagree with that, that's you. And we're seeing that in the local levels. The illusion to prevent these kids from school, it would turn your stomach. Public system that is literally we have a city that completely ignored, even at our mayor's level, I don't have decision making authority.
Yeah.
Stop it. You chose not to use it, and you all signed with the Board of Health, which does not have data. But through this whole education, our eyes are being opened. We're not. We've had to live almost had a year, Julia. I'm gonna learn stuff, and I'm gonna because I'm thinking that this is corrupt, and this has to stop. And I've learned a ton. Allie is the guru of local government stuff, and we're realizing that we need to get more that are going to fight for our kids and aren't going to just the mental health issue. We have 2 board members that dissuaded public health issues. We are having kids that are going to experience.
Yep.
And that's not, you know, we have a special education department that's working our power out front, but they're forgetting emergency order before with the help kids. And they really created a guideline that prevented most of the kids able to go in person. So again, the hypocrisy is it's walking.
Yeah.
Allie, jump in.
No, I mean, I agree. I've been, you know, I feel like I beat a dead horse every day when I talk about the fact that, you know, and it's such a cliche phrase, but elections have consequences. And my whole like purpose, especially, I mean, Alicia will tell you that I beat her to death in the head all the time about the fact that we need strong candidates. We need to get people that will into the Board of Education, for example, that will stand up to the union and work appropriately with the superintendents of the school, and who will listen to the parents of the 11,000 students of Nashua. Same with the aldermen and the ward reps. We need strong people in there that will get everything back in check again. The spending, the finances, the policies, the procedures, the everything. So I've been saying, you know, like come August is the time you can register with the clerk. We have to have strong candidates for all of these open positions. There's 4 in our Board of Education in Nashua, and all the aldermen. And we have to hit the streets and hit the ground running, and with our guerrilla marketing and grassroots type of angle, and get you know, get some control back essentially of these things. I think, you know, Nashua is pretty blue, and again, it's not a problem to have people of either party or of no party or things of that nature, but there has to be a balance. And right now, in our case, in Nashua, is out of balance. So we need to rebalance it out and to get some strong people in there that will stand up to these things, and you know, but who can work alongside with people that they may not necessarily agree with, but balance. We need balance again. Right now, I think our Board of Education is like, what is it?
It's a hot mess.
Right. Is it 8 people or 9 people?
It's 9, but
so it's like 6 to 2. It's a 6 to 2. It's 6 blue, 2 red. And our Board of Aldermen, I believe, is 7 blue, 2 red. So the balance is out of whack. So our budget's out of whack. You know, everything's out of whack. We need to whack.
Our big push in this state needs to be, we are not Massachusetts. Stop trying to turn us into Massachusetts. If you liked it there, you would have stayed there. You came to New Hampshire for a reason. Yeah, don't mass up New Hampshire. You came here for a reason. Learn why you came here. Learn why it works. Then jump into the system. All right? We don't like taxes. We like our guns. We like our personal freedoms. No one cares about your social issues. We just don't care. Live your life how you want to live. Live free or die.
Yeah.
That's like everything else. Everything else. And I say this, the majority of the laws that we got in this country are because some damn Karen said there should be a law for that. And some politician went, I like the authority to tell you what you can do. So let's go with that.
Everybody's offended. Like everybody's offended. And I'm like, guys, like, so Allie knows. I mean what you say, but don't say. And now these people are seeing, like, we've been silent for so long. And then you locked us up in our houses for 11 months. Not only did I have more gluten free than any person ever in their home, but I had more to learn, educate myself on what is wrong with our state.
Yeah.
What's wrong with everything? Like, Governor Sununu is wonderful. And I think that they're great, but I think that that's we need when Allie's the wrong candidate, it's not just like, well, they like issue, like this issue. People that stand up and fight back, because
Yeah.
what's happening, what's happening, Hampshire and even nationally, is like everyone kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
things.
I don't want to upset anybody.
Yeah, I don't want to end it. I was like, listen, I can you, but I can't understand you. And it is like I'm a really kind person. I treat other people kindly. Allie and I are at this place where, like, don't F with my children. Like, you can come at me all you want, and I'll take it, and I'll own it, but don't come after my kids. Because when you start coming after my kids, and it's not, live free or die, that's not free. Even having a discussion about House Bill 20, that's not free.
No. Telling me what my kids can and can't learn, telling me where they can and can't go, what they can and can't wear, telling me in general that I don't know what's best for my child, and that somebody who has no idea who my child is, how he learns, what he's good at, or my daughters, how they learn, what they're good at, it seems to me completely un-American. I am a unabashed conservative, and I say, as conservatives, if we stick to conservative governance and leave everything else alone, you either want to protect and defend the Constitution or you want to legislate morality. But you can't do both. And every time we try, we leave an opening for the left to do the same. So I say, principally, we need to fight for the Constitution. Principally, we need to fight for our individual rights. And a guy that I talked to on Twitter, he's going to be speaking at CPAC in Florida next week. Name is Maj Toure. He said it best, I think, which is, we are all airing our grievances at the state, and the state has convinced us to take each other out rather than hear our grievances. So we're essentially telling each other that our grievances, that we're all wrong. We're telling each other that we're wrong, when in reality, if we listen to the core arguments of our grievances, whether it's right or left, we're all arguing that the state has done us wrong, that the government has done us wrong. To which I see as conservatives, every time we complain about the government, somebody goes, why don't you love this country? I love this country. I fought for this country. I enlisted for this country. It has nothing to do about loving the country. I love the flag. I love the principles, but our government does not adhere to the principles, and our party doesn't adhere to the principles. So we got a lot of work to do, and Republicans, conservatives that won't fight don't belong. Like, we've been apathetic for too long. One of the core tenets of conservatism is that we're apathetic until something comes to our doorstep. Every time we're not involved in our community, every time we're not involved in a charity, every time we're not hitting the ground, hitting the pavement, and actually doing the work, a cry for more government intervention actually sounds like a reasonable response.
Well, and I don't think we're not crying anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we're not sitting at home, and I'm very fiscally conservative, very socially liberal. I don't care what people do. I support your right to choose. I support your right to live your life the way you want, as long as you're not harming anybody else. You want to have to do. But like, stop doing what I can't do. Like, you can't preach to me that you want your freedoms and then try to take mine away.
Yeah.
Just because, I think you did 2 Tupac say it? I don't remember. Somebody said something like, just because I don't want you to sit at my table doesn't mean you can't eat. Like,
Yeah.
just because we disagree doesn't mean that you have to back down to me or I have to you. Like, let's go back. The Constitution was written for a reason. You know, the right to free speech and the right to you know, and even there's some, and you know, I try really hard to not discuss all of the amendments, but you know, you talk about red flag laws and all of these things. Everyone's missing the verbiage that's in there. It wasn't open to interpretation. It is black and white, shall not be infringed is a huge thing. Like, they didn't write like, well, you know, unless you feel this way. Like, we're all on feelings, and if we took our feelings out of the just look at the facts instead of taking it personally, like
the purpose,
yeah,
people miss the purpose of the fact that the First Amendment is there and the Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment and so on and so forth. Like that's why they're written in the way that they are. They're meant to protect each other because they're meant to protect us. So you protect yourself, I'll protect myself, and we follow along with what that is. And for so long, and I think that's why conservatives have fallen behind, because we take that, like Julian said, apathetic approach where we just say, you do you, I'll do me, but behind the scenes they're doing them and you know, things that you don't know, because we're, you know, I think, you know, not that the other side doesn't do these things, but conservatives get busy living life and working and taking care of their family. So that's when this type of thing can happen. But that's always my argument about the Second Amendment. It drives me insane. It's there to protect the first. Okay.
The difference between the left and the right is, it's not that we work and they don't. It's not that it's not anything other than they're engaged and we're not. The core tenets of progressivism is that they're constantly progressing. That's why, and it angers people when I say it, but I've said it many times. The apathy on the right, we come home, our conservatism is all based around, look, I just want to be left alone. I want to be able to sit down and drink a beer and watch the damn game and you stay out of my face. The problem is when you're not willing to do the work at a local level and you're not willing to be involved and make sure that your own local community is doing right by the citizens, not one party or the other, but by the citizens as a whole, then we end up getting into a situation where they cry for government, and that cry for government sounds like a reasonable cry. Now, so we have to be like, I am not a big fan of AOC by any means, but she was right when she said that everyone's an activist now. Everyone's got to pound the pavement. Everyone's got to do the work. On the right, that's how we need to be. 75 million people voted for Trump. 60 million of them need to be activists. We all need to be involved in our local communities. We all need to be involved in local community groups and charities and things like that. If there's an issue, we need to solve it at a local level. That is the thing that is going to make government pretty much irrelevant in our lives. When we're all independent, we don't need government. And then after we get that way, we can't disengage from it. Because the left, when they get off work, they grab a picket sign. When they get off work, they go and lobby, or they'll go and do a sit-in or something like that. They'll go and they'll pound the pavement, knock on doors and stuff like that.
Yep.
We need to do the same. Throughout history, when the right has mobilized, when the conservatives have mobilized throughout history, we succeed.
I agree.
When we need to mobilize. And unfortunately, I'll be completely honest, I know the conversations that happen behind closed doors in the Trump administration, the MAGA rallies, the Brexit rallies, the Turning Point USA rallies, that doesn't count as mobilization. It's a concert. it's a concert, and a lot of people wrote books and they got insta famous on the internet and shit. But they didn't register voters, with the exception of Trump. Trump did register voters everywhere he went, but Exit and Turning Point USA didn't register voters. So there's a lot of partying going on, but not a lot of knocking on doors.
Well, the grassroots stuff, like the Kim Klasiks, who were out registering voters and things like that, I was not aware that Charlie Kirk's organization did not register voters. I mean, I'm shocked to hear that. But I do.
They couldn't.
They
couldn't. It was a tenet of their. They were not a nonprofit. That's why they couldn't register voters, because it would count as. Based on my understanding, it would count as in-kind monetary donations to a campaign or to a party. So they couldn't register voters. It seemed like they were. It would be the equivalent of me throwing a rally or like, say, Kid Rock doing a rally for Trump. It's supposed to make people excited, get your name out there, get you exposure, stuff like that. The problem is, the demographics, Charlie Kirk was targeting young voters. He actively pissed off young voters, so that didn't work. Candace Owens was targeting black voters. The black community absolutely despises her for no other reason than the way that she talks. Yeah, it's not her stances. It's not her print. Oh no, it's the way she talks. She actually called the black community chimpanzees and shit in the zoo. And that destroyed any outreach right there. I'm like, okay, anything that you had good to say, any good ideas, just went right out the window, because it's the equivalent of insulting the person you're trying to sell a car to. If you're insulting someone, you can't sell them. As conservatives, our ideas, our solutions are the product that we're trying to sell. Republican is just the brand name. If I'm trying to sell somebody a brand that they may not be in favor of, I don't mention the brand until the end. If I know that black people or young voters are virulently opposed to Republicans, I'm not going to mention Republicans at all until the end of my pitch. Like, all right, cool, tell me your problems. Doesn't matter how you explain your problems. Tell me your problems. I'll give you solutions. Boom, 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 boom. Here's how they fit within conservative principles. Here's what I can do for you. Will you vote for me? And if you'll vote for me, would you consider joining? By the way, here's the brand. Would you consider joining the Republican Party? But that's your closing argument. That's not your opening argument. And like the slaves on a plantation stuff, that destroyed them right there. That the slaves on Democrat plantation, I understand the logic behind it, but it destroyed all outreach right there, because it's a sensitive subject. You would never walk up to a Jew and say, "You're stuck on the Holocaust. You're stuck on the concentration camp." It would be a horrid statement. Nobody would ever say it.
Well, Julie, I'm Irish.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not crediting. You know,
it's more so the tactic of conversation.
Yeah.
Like, Candace Owens made the mistake of thinking she could say stuff nobody else could say. And the fact is that you can't. There are some things that just because you can say them doesn't mean you should.
Well, and those are, go back to the three fundamentals. What are the three for someone and you never religion, politics, and finance.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't talk about them. And, everybody's so inclined to not share your perspective. Like, you on the Democratic Party, or Allie could be an independent. And once upon a time, be able to say, like, okay, well, I respectfully disagree. Now everybody's so angry that's like, oh, you're a Republican. I don't want to hear that. Why wouldn't you?
We talk past each other now.
Yeah, why would
We care more about the labor than we do the label than we do the content of what's inside. Like to be completely honest, I looked at the time. We made it almost an hour before we even mentioned the party.
Like that says something.
That's
But,
how we need to have discussions.
well, and so I want to, I like, so everyone keeps saying silent majority, right? So we've been the silent majority for time. We did, we the oppositional. We were okay with who we were. Like I want to drink beer. I want to watch the, I want to have friends over and have a fight or whatever. And now we're like, wait, we lost for 11 months. You've gone back and forth on, what we need to do or what we don't need to do. Like at first it was, like, the masks and, the social, like the corner, like you literally locked down our city, locked them down, shut businesses. And by doing that, you like ruined them. We had places that were here for plus years. Close. Done.
Yep. The only saving grace we have here in New Hampshire, I love the state. Frankly, we like every list USA Today ranks each state every year, and we hit like the top of the list in damn near everything. Because we're freaking awesome. Except for weather. Like we could have Florida's weather and it would be so much better. I just want snow on Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's.
True.
Yeah.
And not
no, not a lot of snow. Not like this.
Look outside and be like, oh, it's snowing. Hot cocoa, light up a fire, sit like a whole
enough to build a snowman, enough to have 3 or 4 snow days a year, and throw a snowball at my wife.
Well, we don't have snow days anymore. Did you miss?
Oh yeah, I saw that. No, we have schoolwork on snow days.
Yeah, it go remote. So
yeah,
and I like
snow days are over.
My kids on a snow, like on a paper, it's blizzard outside. We're wearing our pajamas out. We're watching the TV, and I don't care if I see something that says closed. Like, so what they've also done is I am the superintendent my resident education system. So like if I call a snow day, my kids are getting a snow day. Like it's bad enough. I had to like work through some stuff that I can't work. Like now we're like somebody scramble. We have to like log out, turn it off and turn it on again. These kids have to figure out how to do that in the last 7 months. Like first grader. Are you kidding me? We can barely get on the right way. And you want to like get technology?
I'm actually scared because my 2-year-old is getting really good at the whole technology thing, and I'm like, I suck at the technology thing. Like I am horrible at this. I hate it. I work with my hands my whole life. So like the whole technology thing, and besides like podcasting and stuff, my 2-year-old's like, oh yeah, daddy, just I'm like, oh yay, I feel stupid. Thank you very much. I got outdone by a 2-year-old, and my 9-year-old's like, Dad, you just messed up. Here, let me change the ratio on your camera. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you, freaking tech whiz. Go sit down, Geek Squad.
Yeah, I handed my phone or my computer, and like, what are you doing? Like, hit control this, control like, like, okay, like, thank you so much. I appreciate it. That's also
honestly, I'm super excited because I see a young, new, vibrant crop of conservatives coming up that are more like the average day voter. Because I see everyday conservatives as socially liberal and governmentally, fiscally conservative. So, like, if the government stuck to the damn Constitution and stopped trying to do everything else, I don't care how you want to live your life. That's fine. It's not a problem until you tell me how to live mine or until you try to push on me. And I see a lot of the candidates coming up like that. So the only thing I see standing in our way, which brings us back to how the country was founded and the origins of the Republican Party. We were this big tent, different ethnicities, groups, genders, cultures, backgrounds. The one thing we all agreed on is what government should or should not be involved in. And as I see us getting back there, I'm like really excited. But at the same time, the only thing I see us needing to work on is messaging, because we have made the mistake in the past of having absolutely dismal messaging, and for a party filled with businessmen, we are notoriously bad at marketing our ideas.
Well,
I'm like,
technology.
yeah, I'm like, you got Hollywood that can take the dumbest damn idea ever and they can turn it into a 15-minute commercial where they're breathlessly in black and white with piano playing in the background, say one word each, and everyone goes, oh my God, that was so deep. I'm like, they said nothing. They said nothing of value in 10 minutes but the piano in the background, and it was great cinematography.
Well,
And I'm sitting there like, we could have done that.
Look at the media. Like, we would rather talk about, some girl who used Gorilla Glue for hairspray.
Yeah, I didn't even wait. I didn't even waste 2 minutes on that story.
But like, that's what I mean. Like, but like the other stuff that's important and significant.
It's because it's a distraction. If they can keep us distracted, everything that passes in Washington, like everyone blames Bush for the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act has been re-upped by both friggin' by Biden and Obama more than once throughout his presidency. Got re-upped by Trump too. So all the stuff that happens in Congress happens when we're distracted based on the media, the bouncing ball of the day. Like one of the groups sponsoring me is the Black Pack, the Black Asian Latin or Black Latin Asian Knowledge Pack. And I kept saying, look, all of you, pull your resources, everyone do one big commercial like that Hollywood commercial where you each say your district, blah, 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 blah. You say your district, you say who you're running for, who you're running against, and at the bottom have your campaign donation or whatever, and a little something about you, like veterans. A lot of them were Air Force veterans and Army veterans and stuff. And in black and white with your district in the background, then pan to the next one. 30, 40, 50 different representatives, and then say, we're coming. You steal the left's tactics and you use it against them. You steal their own tactics and messaging and you use it against them.
Become the enemy.
I know, Allison, I know you got to go. Thank you for coming on. You were absolutely awesome.
Thanks for having me.
I love having you guys on. You guys are great. Alicia, you can stay on if you want. I love having you guys on. I hope to have you guys back on and get some talk some more, especially about New Hampshire stuff, seeing as I'm running in this next election.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. I'm happy to keep talking about corruption and collusion, violations of antitrust acts. Like you want to, but like,
oh yeah,
I guess
my issue with all of that is I see the Republicans have done the same thing over the years, and I see as voters we give them a pass because they're on our side, and they usually do it when nobody's looking. So, like, everything that we rant and rave about the left doing, if we look, there's a whole bunch of Republicans over the years that have done the same thing, and sitting here going, we can't really say anything because we keep electing people like Mitch McConnell.
Well, that's so in Nashua, everybody, right? So you watch these. First of all, if you haven't watched a Board of Education meeting, they're all on YouTube. If you know, get your popcorn, get your beer, and take a swig every time somebody says, oh my gosh, what were the things? But regardless, like they say the same things over and over. They talk in circles, and it's like this huge dance around. So like the issue's here, and they're like, yeah, but. And then they bring your attention over here, and then they just do this over and over. And people are like, well, how did we get these people? And I'm like, you voted for them, or you didn't vote and they got in. You didn't run to oppose them. I mean, our mayor in Nashua, the last time he ran unopposed. And I'm like, so you can't complain about it and do nothing about it. Like, you just can't do that. It's not effective. And it's not helpful, and it's not, Democrat. So, because I know some people on the Democratic Party that are very, very articulate and understanding, and, they don't play the politics game. I mean, they're lower in the ring because, they're not the puppets. But then you have all of the puppets in New Hampshire and in legislation that are, they're not working for the best interest of the community.
Yeah, it's getting to be where, and I'm actually glad that Trump lost for one reason. If he hadn't lost, we would still be under the disillusion that many of the people that are in Washington are actually representing us, rather than seeing them clearly as people who do what is required of them when it's required of them just to stay in office. Like people like Mitch McConnell, people like Lindsey Graham and Kevin McCarthy at the national level. Or at the local level, people like Chris Pappas, who seemed pretty moderate, like a moderate liberal when he ran, not so frickin' moderate when he got into office.
Well, it's like a change.
Middle of the road Democrat before, now he is way off the deep end. The only difference between him and Jean Shaheen and Maggie Hass and the rest of them is that they keep their mouths shut. They vote lockstep with the rest of them, but they keep their mouths shut so they don't make press.
Yeah, as conservatives, we're like, the best defense is a really, really good offense. You wouldn't go into a football game without knowing the other team's plays. You watch them, you learn them, and it's like bobbing and weaving. Same thing with boxing. You watch patterns of behavior, and I think that as a conservative, again, fiscally conservative, socially liberal, you do you, boo, over here, and I'll just do as long as you don't tell me how I'm supposed to do me. I'm not sitting here saying, we pray every night at dinner, and we practice religious beliefs really, really strongly. But like, I'm not telling everyone, like, you have to do it, because if you're not doing what I'm doing, then you're doing it wrong. And I just, because I want you to, you have to. That's not how it works. That's not how humans work.
Yep.
You think about
it's not an accurate representation of the people.
Well, and you think so we adopted a shepherd, and I know, like, my analogies are like totally off. We adopted a 5-year-old shepherd, right? So we knew going into this that, like, a 5-year-old shepherd, first of all, they're wicked stubborn, but they're also really, really smart. But the point that I'm making is, when we learned, the trainer is fantastic. We were very, very lucky to have him. He's very real, but he explained it as, like, we have animal instincts. So, like, with a dog, our biggest mistake is, like, dogs do dogs really well, just like people do people and their belief systems really well. And then we try to, like, go in and snug and, like, I want to love you. And then the dog's like, no. And then they end up like biting someone, and we're like, well, did they bite you because they didn't like what you were doing and you kept doing it? It's the same thing. But with dogs, they're like a quick bite and that's it. Like, correct the behavior, move on. And what we're doing right now is, as people, we're screwing it up. We're not like, we're the problem, and the silent majority, like I said before, we're not being silent anymore. It was almost like, when your family is sitting at a table or talking at Thanksgiving, and it's the conversation's getting heated, and then the drunk uncle bangs his hands on the thing and he's like, you know what, I've had enough, and he's the one that like doesn't usually talk about it. He's very passive, but all of a sudden they've had this outburst, and I feel like we're doing it but tactfully. Like we're not like throwing fits. We will do a peaceful protest for a cause, but like it's almost like the way that the media and society views it as like, we're not allowed to protest to protect our rights, right? For unless you agree with the ideology that we have. So we're like kind of like throwing your hands up like, well, what do you want us to do? Like there's there's rules, and there's statutes, and there are all of these things. Like, I don't know if you know it, Julian, but like way back when, like a bunch of people got together when our country was founded, and they even wrote like a playbook on like, here's what you can't do, here's what you can't do this but not that, and we're going to be a free country. And like everybody's like, no, but I don't agree with that. Well, I don't care if you don't agree with it. The country was founded on that. I agree that if you're going to come into the country, you should really be in support of the country. You should want what's best. I'm not going to move to, Germany and then saying, no, I don't like how you're doing it. I'm going to make a big stink about it and I'm going to change it. Well, if you don't like it, live somewhere else. And
I completely agree. I'm a big supporter of, our country is made to operate a certain way, and people who say that the Constitution is an old document and it doesn't pertain to now, obviously haven't read it, and most adults that I find have not read it, at least not as adults. Most adults read it when they read the Bill of Rights, and that's about it. When they were in school, maybe even the preamble.
Yeah.
Most adults have not read the entire thing. I read it every year. And I'm starting that tradition with my son. I read the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, the Constitution, the ratification debates, the Anti-Federalist Papers, as suggested to me by someone recently, and the founding ideological contributors like Alexis de Tocqueville, Charles de Montesquieu, Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, Locke, Hobbes, all of them. And my whole point is, if you don't know the founding, then you have no idea what you're talking about when it comes to the rest of it. If you haven't actually read it, then you can't discuss constitutionality, because you only got tiny pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah.
You're trying to solve a puzzle with one or two pieces.
Yeah.
And most of the people saying that we need to get rid of it or rewrite it, no, all the problems we have are from people trying to interpret the damn thing as something that it's not. If you read it in plain text, most of the transgressions government has committed against us, whether it be right or left, all fall into the should have never happened category.
Yeah.
All completely unconstitutional and illegal. So that solves most of the issues right there. The founders were very explicit in the fact that and involved in a knowledgeable and involved, engaged populace was required to keep democracy, to keep this republic, and to keep the Constitution. We have failed to be knowledgeable and involved. Many of us have checked out completely, or we're saying weird asinine things like we're saying weird asinine things like the entirety of the media lies, except for my guy, because that guy tells the truth. I'm like, no, your guy's just as partisan as the rest of them. There are very few people who even make a veiled attempt at being nonpartisan. To be honest, I have no issue with partisan at this point, as long as people admit it openly.
Mm-hmm. But
Like,
then,
I don't think we can actually get non-partisan news or anything anymore. Just be honest about it and say, look, I'm a conservative, or hey, I'm a liberal, or hey, I'm a socialist, or hey, I'm an anarchist, and then we can go from there, because now I can discount you and judge you appropriately.
well, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, you're right now, you're either on the right or you're on the left. Like,
yeah.
And like what most of us should be doing is looking at, our constitutional rights and walking in the middle and saying,
Yeah.
like, it's like, again, it's like dog training, right? So my dog, I want her to stay in a box to heel, right? So
Yeah.
I say heel, and my expectation is she's going to stay in that box. Whether she wants to go, yeah, but there's a bird over there and I want the bird. I'm like, no, stay in your lane. Nope, stay right next to me. And it's the same thing with the Constitution, right? So let's think about it like that. The Constitution was written, it was the foundation of the United States of America, right? So if you are not healing to that, and you're like, yeah, but I don't really like this. Well, heal. Like, come back, stay in this box, and let's not leave it. Because as soon as we try to leave it and we deviate from it, it wasn't open to interpretation. You and even if it was, you interpret it differently than I interpret it, but the facts are the same. Don't do it. Or do it.
Yeah. All the interpretations and everything. One of the things the founders explicitly said is that all our laws should be written in plain language so that the average person could understand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the laws back then, the Constitution was written in the same syntax in which people spoke back then. Mm-hmm. It's poetic. It's beautiful. I love the way it sounds. It just rolls off the tip of the tongue. But all of our laws now are filled with legal jargon, and unless you're a lawyer or you are a nerd and read this shit for fun. I'm the latter. Yeah, I read this because it interests me. I understand it's painful, but unless you actually read the stuff on a daily basis, you don't get it and you don't understand it, and it doesn't make sense. And the language that is used in our laws is made to be able to be conflated and to mean whatever the hell you want it to mean.
Well, I'll give you an example.
In one moment, it could give you power. In another moment, it couldn't. Like, I'm a big fan of originalist judges, because originalist judges don't interpret the Constitution. They just go, yeah, this law is in violation of the Constitution. It says right here in plain text that you can't do that. We're not going to accept that. Or it says in plain text that you can do that. We're all for it. That's it. And
well, you go through,
that's not a threat to people's rights.
Yeah,
it's a threat to the government. It's not a threat to us.
No, you go to these hearings, right, and say you're quoting RSA, whatever. And within that RSA, it says, if you do, literally it says it, if you do any of these things,
mm-hmm.
It's illegal. Like, you can't do that. So don't do these, and anything that's not these. Okay, great. So, but then you get at the judicial level and you have all of your facts, right? You're like, okay, line A, this is what it says, and this is the evidence that supports that it was violated. And you can do that all day long, but
mm-hmm.
then you have the objective view, and that's great. But if you're like, yeah, so I know that it says that, but I just personally don't see where that falls. And you're like, so it says this, this is the evidence that says it was not this, like, violated, done, black and white.
Yep.
And some of the judicial pieces and even attorneys are just as guilty of it. Like, they attack people on things that are like significant. Like, you know, I don't even have a direct example. Say you're going for a parenting case, right? And you're like, well, you know, here's what I'm asking, and here's what we've agreed upon. And then a judge comes in and says, I see where you were going with that, but no, it doesn't. I just don't agree with it. So I'm not going to rule on it. And I'm going to make these changes. And then you're supposed to just go with the changes. And you can like file appeals, you can do all of that stuff, but it falls into the same category. Like, if the laws are written this way, if the Constitution is written this way, then pretend you're a dog and think like a dog and heel, stay in the box. Like, if you are leaving the box, you have now deviated from what the language says. So just don't do it. Or
Yep.
do it. But then there's consequences. So
Yeah, I think if anything, the success of the liberty movement in general going forward will be add some decent messaging and stay big tent. And unfortunately, the people who are running the party are socially conservative and want to legislate morality, but they are not actually constitutionally conservative. They may land there on one thing or another, but they're really not, because they all agree that government should be lording over us, not serving us as they're supposed to and representing us. They believe that they should be privy to the conversations that we're not, and we should just take it and be okay with it. They are all completely happy to tell us what to do and to have a separate standard for them, and we should all just sit down and shut up. So I take issue with the party leadership, because the party leadership does not represent the average voter in the Republican Party. The average voter, like we said, is socially liberal and governmentally, constitutionally conservative. We want to conserve how our country was structured and how it's supposed to operate. We want everything else to remain at the state and local level like it was designed to, which would solve the majority of our problems.
But they also need to have a level of accountability too, and that's missing.
Yeah, there's no accountability. Originally, senators were accountable to their states because they were elected by their state legislatures. They were appointed by their state legislatures. That's no longer a thing. So now senators, they, like everyone calls them, the Club of 100, they're notoriously hard to replace. And they pretty much get to do whatever the hell they want, because they know, short of something dismal, like absolutely dismal, like some sort of major scandal, that they'll pretty much have their seat for life. Now, I don't think that that's relevant today, because I think the populist movement on both sides of the aisle is aiming heavy at career politicians, and I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of term limits.
Mm-hmm.
My only struggle is, how do we enact term limits at a federal level if we can't even vote the people out that have been career politicians?
Well,
there's too many people that are apathetic and have no problem with just checking the box for the name that they know.
Well, and that's what moving myself to more of an independent, because I didn't want to have to vote a straight ticket, because there's conservatives. I mean, I'll be honest, there's some conservatives I can't agree. I'm not saying like you can't eat, but I just don't want you to sit at my table. So I don't want to have to vote a straight ticket. I want to be able to vote for things that are important to me, which might be different than the things that are important to you. You know, there may be topics that I'm just like, take it or leave it. I want everybody to just be able to do or not do. If you look at the local level, I'll use Nashua as an example. Several board members have been preventing the kids from going back to school, like vehemently preventing or opposing it. And they've done some really, really horrible stuff. And they have acted outside of, their elected authority. But when we tried to, to foster a recall and get the petition, we could have gotten the numbers. We could have done all of these things. But the problem being that there's now a local part or a local law that says, ooh, so you can't really recall an elected official. So you're stuck with them. And I don't agree with that ideology. I think that if you have acted outside of the role that you were elected for and doing it in opposition of what you were elected for, you shouldn't be able to continue doing that. Like, there should be some weigh-in from the majority and from the people that voted for you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't exist. People can say what they want, do what they want, and as long as they're associated with one specific party, it's okay. But as soon as a conservative comes up and goes, okay, well, I see your ideology, but no, that people are saying the separation of church and state, and that's all fine and good, but if we're going to separate church and state, why are there classes that are talking about the various religions of the world, which I'm okay with, but we have to include all of them?
Yeah. Yeah. The separation of church and state wasn't even really in the Constitution, but it was, it's one of those things where if you want to study how religion has affected law in the world or history, I have no problem with that. Mm-hmm. If in school, because religion has played a major role in the structure of government, in law, and how historical events have played out throughout history. I have no issue with discussing it. What I have an issue with is teachers pushing one ideology over another, taking sides one over another, not teaching historical fact, but interjecting their own opinions on matters. I'm a big fan of devil's advocate when it comes to being a teacher. If you're going to stand up in front of the classroom, you should be able to put your own personal issues aside and dispassionately make people have to justify their positions. If you're going to stand up in front of the class and you're going to say, well, I believe boom, 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 boom. All right, cool. Give me the facts. Give me the facts. If you don't have facts, sit down, shut up. And it should be that simple. You should have to teachers should be there to educate, not there to push an ideology one way or another. So my thing is, I'm not a big fan of, I'm not for critical race theory being taught in schools, but I'm also not for 1776 initiative being taught in schools, because I see critical race theory being everything America is bad and racist. And I see 1776 being everything is awesome, Team America, fuck yeah. And I see both of those being negative, because I saw the difference in education going from Dayton, Ohio to moving up here, where in Dayton, Ohio, I got taught Black history by people who were in the civil rights movement. I got taught about Vietnam by people who were in Vietnam. I got taught, so there was a difference, and we were right on the Mason-Dixon line. So I got taught about slavery by people in a level. It's kind of like how in New England we take the Revolutionary War very, very seriously, and in down south they take the Civil War very, very seriously because it was their war. You get up along the Canadian border, and the French and Indian War, I'm sure, is taken very, very seriously. And you go down to Texas and California, and they take the Spanish-American War very, very seriously. So when I look at the different perspective, I saw a lot more of, say, critical race theory being added into the curriculum down there. And then I come up here and I got a whole lot of patriotic history that was void of a lot of the context that was needed to be able to make a sound judgment or analysis about it. Whereas I believe if we teach the whole of history, no more Black History Month, Black history interjected into the historical discussion in context wherever it should be placed. You can't teach 450 years of history in America, in this continent, of Black history in 1 month. It's just not possible. That's why nobody knows Black history.
Yeah. So just so you
lead us to having bad discussions about it, because we're starting from a place where the majority of the country can't discuss it intelligently because we just don't know it. So I say all history needs to be taught with all relevant facts, with no interjections of opinion or whatever, and let children decide. Because the way I look at it, I was taught everything. And I love this country. And I believe if you're taught everything, the goods and the bads, the dark times, the good times, all of it, you'll still end up loving the damn country. You don't have to push a patriotic curriculum, and you sure as hell don't need to push a anti-patriotic curriculum that we're all bad and we're all going to die and burn in hell and shit. I think that's negative, and it leads kids to, if you think that the world is worse off now than it has ever been, you're going to be an incredibly depressed individual. It's going to seem like there's nothing that you can do, and it's going to lead to like suicide rates going up and stuff. If you believe that the world has only gotten worse, that's a horror. Considering what we've come from, that's incredibly depressing.
My phone is gonna die, and I'm like terrified to use my computer again because it was like not behaving. But
I loved having you guys on. You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much. It's nice, and it's a breath of fresh air to be able to talk about open dialogue. And you know what's crazy? Even if we disagreed on stuff today, we did it respectfully.
Yeah. I think you guys represent the majority. I think this conversation today represents the majority of conservatives on the right. And we need to find a way to have these types of discussions held at our national level.
Yeah.
Within the party leadership needs to be thinking the way we do here.
Well, and I think that, take party politics, take the party affiliation out of it.
Yeah.
What all just looked at the root issues, and instead of clouding it with your beliefs or, clouding it with this, look at the facts. And then we figure out how to solve these problems instead of fighting against each other on whether or not it's a problem. Like, it's just
agreed.
And I appreciate, like I said, it's been nice to be able to talk to someone. Anytime that you want to have woke discussions with a couple of moms just hanging out, we're happy to do that. But I appreciate it. Thank you.
Most definitely. Most definitely. You have a great day. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day. I got to go help my son with his home learning and stuff now. So fun.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah.
Bye. All right. So that is episode 23 of the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. A couple at-home moms today, single moms to discuss education and things of that sort in New Hampshire. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Share it, like, subscribe, retweet, all of that fun stuff. And I'm going to leave you guys with the going out music. Have a good day. God bless. And hopefully I will see you guys. I will be live streaming at CPAC throughout the day as interesting and fun happenings. Have a good.
And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. He's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous water. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door,
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess.
I keep forget when I